Just master race things. Just master race things. You know, just master race things.
I can already taste the console divide in the comments. It is satisfying. Joking aside, a lot of the PC's success in gaming over recent years can be traced back to Valve. With the power of Steam under its belt, gaming culture icons, and inadvertently inspiring others to be more creative, Valve's been very instrumental in the last decade of gaming, for better or worse. Unfortunately, for every amazing feat they pulled off, they've also had a few hiccups where they either come off as apathetic and kinda lazy, or they really didn't think something through all the way. Thankfully, they're nowhere near as scummy as some of the other companies we've charbroiled, but that's barely an excuse for when they botch it up. So, what better way to whip Valve into shape when we're showing them what happens when you get sloppy?
A battle as old as time itself. Console versus console. An endless struggle to see which will stand the test of time as the supreme gaming platform overall.
In an effort to steer more consumers towards PC gaming, Valve decided the best way to fight your enemy is to become your enemy. Thus was born the Steam Machine, or Steam Box as some prefer. The box was supposed to be the bridge between PC and console gaming, operating on its own OS and being able to play certain titles on Steam, including PC and Mac. Along with that, they also put out their own Steam controller, which does work with your computer because, face it, playing with a mouse and keyboard gets pretty tedious after a while. Unfortunately, when both were released together, only 500,000 Steam machines were initially sold, and the Steam controllers were barely used. Oh, how can this be?
It has no functional purpose. It just makes me feel bad.
While the console wasn't really broken, it didn't perform that well either. There were a lot of compatibility issues with certain games, and the library was pretty much a barren wasteland. What definitely didn't help was the price when it first came out, the lowest selling from $400 to $6,000. And as for the controller, you know, I kind of feel bad for putting this thing down because it does work, but what's the point of it? Why would anyone want one of these when an Xbox or PS4 controller works just as well, if not better, for PC gaming? In a way, I can kind of get what Valve was aiming for. A lot of players tend to overlook PC gaming, and the company thought they could find a way to bring both systems together in some way. Unfortunately, they couldn't put their best foot forward, and the idea ended up falling flat. The controller was discontinued in late 2019, and the Steam Box? Well, notice the empty page on the Steam website, and the mystery is solved. On the surface, there's nothing really wrong with Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Aside from a few porting differences, the game was praised for being faithful to the last game, Counter-Strike Source, saying that it added a much-needed upgrade while keeping some of its best features. However, it does have one glaring weakness: Valve itself. Here's what I mean. As the title's popularity grew, so did the market for certain skins from the game. Yeah, believe it or not, some people are willing to pay out the nose just for a fancy coat of paint for one of their weapons or characters.
You'd be amazed how lucrative cosmetics can be. We'll get to that later.
When CSGO finally reached esports level, it inadvertently spawned a series of gambling fiascos where instead of actual money, they bet with skins on online casinos. And the collective value for these cosmetics climbed to over $1 billion. To their credit, you can't really blame Valve for this, but they took their sweet time to fix everything. And it feels like the only real reason they cracked down on the gamblers was because of a court order. Oh yeah, it got lawsuit levels of bad. While that one makes Valve look more like a victim of circumstance, they have no excuse for this next incident. CSGO is equipped with a VAC system that cracks down hard on cheaters. If it detects someone cheating or using a hack, immediate banishment. Why is this a bad thing? The ban hammer is automated, and there have been reports where those that are innocent ended up in the crossfire as well. And the only way to reverse a ban is stupidly impossible.
Look, I don't claim to understand the law. I just enforce it, blindly and without hesitation.
It's a real shame because, as I said, CSGO is a pretty good game. The reason why it's so low is that the whole gambling fiasco isn't really Valve's fault, and technically the VAC is doing its job. But their own laziness allowed all that black market shit to go on for so long and punished those who didn't even cheat the game just because of close association. Many gamers in this day and age don't just stick to one console manufacturer, they go for multiple, including the PC. Heck, I'm one of them. Because of that, and the potential profits, you'd think that Valve would capitalize on it, right?
No.
Ever since TF2 released on consoles through the Orange Box back in 2007, Valve has completely ignored it. That's 13 years worth of updates that potential fans have missed out on. Because, if I'm reading this right, publishers wouldn't let Valve make Team Fortress 2 free to play on consoles. What? While that's been happening, and other PC-focused developers have branched out into consoles, Valve still refuses to adapt to the times. They claim it's because they feel like working with consoles is like a walled garden. And they don't understand why people wait to ship out updates. You think the efforts that fans have gone through to play it on PS3 would tell them something? Once their own games really started reaching populist status, Valve inadvertently created a virtual economy of buying and selling virtual items. Among these virtual goods are the plentiful, stylish, not really practical TF2 hats. Some of the more rare ones dubbed unusual hats. What's that? You don't think there's anything lucrative about these goofy hats?
Let me explain. I'm prepared to give you $500 for that drink hat.
Not so fast. I'll give you $1,000 for such a hat.
I'll give you $100,000 in cash for said hat.
Sir, I'll give you $1 million for that hat.
And that's how this little tale started. Around the summer of 2019, Valve released a TF2 update that featured about 22 unique unusual cosmetics. And how did it end?
Didn't you hear? They found a whole warehouse full of them. They're worthless.
You know it's bad when a SpongeBob episode mirrors real life.
Yeah, it turns out their new update also carried a glitch where literally every crate would feature these unusual items, basically turning once valuable treasures into fool's gold. Oh, but wait, it gets better. This little bug of theirs ended up throwing TF2's entire economy into a downward spiral. Because face it, if I was just gonna give you a one-of-a-kind trinket at the drop of a hat, why bother buying from the market?
I mean, it's not like people need money to live and...
And the real kicker? At the time of this video, Valve has done nothing to try and find a permanent fix to this glitch. Instead, their best solution was to make only one of the unusual cosmetics a player may have picked up tradable, while the rest are on trade log, meaning that those who exploited the crate depression can keep their ill-gotten booty, while those who refrained from doing the bad basically lost out on a chance for cheap cosmetics. You know, this could actually be a real-life economics lesson. Supply and demand exists for a reason, folks.
With a lot of these countdown segments, normally what I do is give a little background or tell a joke or two to sort of lead into what I'm going to talk about. They do it for me here.
Smithies, are they booing me?
Really? After years of radio silence about any game development at all, this is what Valve is finally giving us? From the moment Artifact was announced, fans knew what the whole point of it was: to take a popular game, slap it onto a lucrative genre, and rake in the cash. Now, to be fair, Artifact did have some potential. The idea of incorporating a MOBA's lane system into a card game could have made for some interesting strategy. Unfortunately, any potential Artifact had as a game was utterly gutted by its monetization system, which would make some EA games blush. Say what you will about other games of the genre, at least you can earn cards for free there. In Artifact, you can only earn them in-game through paying money on top of buying the game itself. The reason for this is obvious. Valve wanted to prevent cards from being devalued so they could get the highest amount possible from Steam community market fees. Because Gaben forbid that someone enjoy a game in this day and age without getting nickel and dimed.
What is your major malfunction?
To the surprise of absolutely no one sans Valve, this led to the player count quickly plummeting and the game being abandoned. Meanwhile, the value of the cards fell to non-figured in pennies. To add insult to injury, a Dota 2 custom game released shortly afterward, Auto Chess, quickly found itself much more popular and beloved than Artifact. Later on, Valve released its own version of Auto Chess, Dota Underlords, for the low price of nothing. For a time, Underlords thrived. Until it didn't.
Fill out a form and put it in the suggestion box.
Customer service is the act of serving the customers. Duh. You think that was pretty straightforward. For Valve, they seem to have a problem grasping this simple fact. Truthfully, Valve seems to go out of their way to disservice the customer. In fact, the Better Business Bureau gave Valve an F in customer service. Let's talk about some of the reasons for this score, conveniently listed by category. Valve is known for almost maliciously ignoring customer complaints, to the point some people question if Valve even has a customer service division. In fact, the Triple B has reported that of 717 complaints, Valve failed to respond to 502 of them. That's 70% of complaints ignored. Valve has, on numerous occasions, refused refunds for no other reason than because we said so. Even beyond that, their return policy is pretty brutal. You get 14 days to decide if you want to keep something. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, then we get to the second part of the return policy. You can't play more than 2 hours of the game you're returning. I don't know about you, but it takes me a little more than 2 hours to decide if I don't like most games. Well, screw me for wanting to give something a chance, I guess. Valve has been known to vac ban people who are even remotely suspected of cheating. They don't even wait for any kind of confirmation. Even when they're in the wrong and ban someone totally innocent, it's almost impossible to have a vac ban reversed by Valve. In fact, getting a vac ban reversed is an uphill battle most people just don't have the time or energy to fight. And these are just some of the ways in which Valve customer service is just plain awful. I could list more, but we'd be here all day. And besides, there are still things on this list that need to be addressed, such as... If there's one thing that PC gaming has over consoles, aside from better community support, customization, frame rates, performance, and overall existence, it would be the modding community. When a bunch of dedicated fans get together to add even more content to a game they love, you can end up with a whole slew of content that might even overtake the original game in scope. Many fans will pour hours of their time into these mods merely because they love the game itself. So when Bethesda and Valve teamed up to introduce paid mods, fans were hesitant at best and outright hostile at worst. And really, after reading into the details on this deal, who can blame them for that? One of the biggest issues right off the bat would be the division of funds with a 25-75 split, the 75 being Valve and the parent company's take. Many fans already donate money directly to modders, so why would fans want to do the same thing, but most of the money wouldn't go to the people who created it? Another issue is that mods aren't always created by one person. Many modders compile other mods on top of theirs, require other mods to function, or have many programmers working on one mod. So with allegations of theft or not receiving proper dues, properly compensating people would turn into a logistical nightmare. And this is assuming everything works. One downside to heavily modding your game is, well, you can end up breaking it. If you had people paying for a product that would end up bricking their game, they naturally want refunds. This is why I mentioned earlier that most modders get donations. In that case, people are giving freely. But when you pay for something, consumers expect more polish and fewer problems. Less than a week after announcing the deal, Valve ended the paid mods initiative. They must have been listening to their customers for once and realized they were setting themselves up for more headaches than profits. However, in hindsight, I think the idea could have worked if Valve had allowed an easier way for modders to receive donations or a better way of getting certain mods showcased, sort of a challenge to Nexus mods or other modding websites. Too bad Bethesda learned absolutely nothing from this though, but hey, like they always say, get it? A long time ago, when Steam was one of the very few online stores for PC games, indie games were starting to rise in popularity among gamers. Small-time developers can make solid games with limited resources and a focus on creativity and innovation. Since most games are made on PC, it would make sense that a majority of releases for indie games would be on Steam. So, taking advantage of the new growth, Valve decided to create a way for developers to publish their games without needing a corporate backing or some sort of AAA. Sorry. Watch too much Jim Sterling. AAA connection to get started, a place where their games can be greenlighted. So came Steam Greenlight. At first, it was pretty solid. The titles people submitted were not too shabby, but the impending problem was the way for games to be published was too lenient. It was dependent mostly on viewer feedback and voting rather than executive meddling. Good for viewers, but also easily exploitable. So many really bad games were submitted and approved without review. And yes, these include porn games without a rating, unfinished games rampant with glitches, complete asset flips, and in some cases, just the dumbest games possible to see what they can get away with. Plus, there were reports of trading card abuse, allowing developers to make a quick buck by creating their own trading cards for their dumb game and selling them for every fake sale, screwing up the Steam store algorithm. In 2017, Steam shut down Greenlight and restarted the system as Steam Direct. This streamlined the process, but with major overhauls that gave more control to Valve and gave slightly stricter guidelines focusing on having actual quality games and making sure the developer was legit. This is a good decision, but it doesn't completely get rid of all the chaos that Greenlight caused, especially since there are thousands of games that were greenlighted. And to be fair, there were still plenty of good games that came out thanks to Greenlight, such as Broforce, Subnautica, and even Undertale. But as usual with these lists, the bad do still outweigh the good, and with Greenlight, the bad games definitely outweigh the good ones.
TLDR, idea, make the barrier for entry into game development a little bit easier. Execution. Oof. Hey kids, remember when Valve actually cared about their games? Neither do they!
People unfamiliar with Valve might be surprised to know that they were once one of the biggest names in PC gaming, thanks to their hugely influential FPS games. Over the years, though, Valve has become less interested in maintaining their games since it's more profitable to just operate the Steam platform. Once a game gets good enough to self-sustain, they just leave it. TF2 is easily the biggest example when it comes to ongoing games. Once one of Valve's most iconic properties, these days it's teetering on the brink of life support despite still having an active player base. Fans got a brief reprieve thanks to the Jungle Inferno update, but even then it's arguable that Valve only pushed out a major update due to competition from Overwatch, and afterward they just kinda left it once again. Of course, TF2 is downright lucky compared to Valve's other signature FPS, Half-Life. For years, the closest thing fans had to news was key staff leaving. Yes, Half-Life Alyx is coming out, but that doesn't excuse how ridiculously long fans had to wait with next to no updates. There's a reason Half-Life 3 Confirmed became a meme.
Command, or you will be relieved.
Dota 2 was able to break the mold by getting regular updates. Of course, we all know the answer to why Valve hasn't abandoned that one.
Welcome once again to Digital Sports.
Contributing to loot box normalization. Yes, the crates aren't as bad as some other games, but Valve isn't blameless here. Nerfing Omni into near uselessness. One of my writers insisted on this one. I don't really understand it, but apparently it means a lot to him, so I did that. So, you're welcome.
And you thought Blizzard's when it's done attitude was bad.
Game delays aren't anything new. Heck, in just the last month, we got 2 major delays with the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Cyberpunk. Developers need to delay games to work on them more, and for the most part, these delays are a good thing. But when a company is so blatant in their delays that a term is coined for it, you know you failed. Valve time is a term created to describe the original announcements of release windows for Valve's games and when they're actually released. For example, Half-Life was originally supposed to release in November of 1997, and then it was delayed to April of next year, and then the summer, before finally being released in November of 1998. Or when an iOS Steam update was supposed to come out a week later, it comes out to 9 months later. It doesn't even have to do with game releases. And just because I'm salty, when Man vs. Machine for TF2 was released, the average wait time was usually 1 to 2 hours. Valve time is literally limbo! Of course, when people started using the term as a joke, Valve ran with it and used it as an excuse to delay games, with going so far as using it in announcements and creating a page on their official development wiki with every instance this has happened. Yeah, they see it as a compliment, but their attitude is pretty pompous. Look at this quote from one of their business development chiefs. "What we're just saying is, we're going to do it when it's ready, and we're going to do it when we think you're going to like it, and we're going to do it when we think it's best." To be fair, not everyone in Valve follows this mantra. The team for Left 4 Dead 2's development tried to avoid it, and the above-mentioned production chief also mentions avoiding developer crunching and listening to customer feedback as reasons for doing it. But consider this. The most recent entry on that wiki page is for Half-Life Alyx, so they haven't learned any lessons, and considering their fear of threes, they won't be learning them anytime soon.
I'm the Fiery Joker, and... What the...
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. And consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member, and you'll get rewards like this. Our named shoutouts come from Luigi EXE Poor Man, Misra D Fox, and Misty Phantom. Our full sentence shoutout comes from Buzzsaw the Righteous, who says, "Hope you will all continue to support Josh and watch his videos and have a fun and righteous time while doing it. Thanks for watching."